Welcome back to the Homeschool Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Bex Buzzy. Today's guest is Michelle Gibby, Marketing Manager of Reading Horizons at Home. By learning the following concepts, students are provided with a framework that allows them to read the majority of words in the English language. These skills are learned through explicit, systematic, and multi-sensory approach that is based on the Orton-Gillingham principles of instruction, teaching decoding skills as a means to an end. In this episode, we talk about how you are the biggest influence in your child's life, how their programs are fully adaptive as well as customizable to each child, no matter if they are learning disabled or even gifted, for education instead of feeling like school is something to dread. Go grab your coffee, go grab your tea and a pen and paper, because you're not going to want to miss what Michelle has to say. Let's get into the podcast. Say hello to our guest and tell us a fact that we might not know about in reading education.
Hi, I'm Michelle Gibby with Reading Horizons at Home. And a fact that you may not know is that 1/5 of children, that's 20% of kids, are dyslexic. And dyslexia is a neurobiological disorder that causes the brain to have a difficulty with learning how to spell and read. And so kids with dyslexia need something a little bit different than what a neurotypical child needs to learn how to read.
And that brings us into exactly what you do. So let's talk about it. Talk about Reading Horizons and what you all focus on.
Yeah, so Reading Horizons as a company was started over 30 years ago, and it was designed to originally help classroom teachers, and it still does that, have a foundational skills curriculum that they can teach kids the foundations of reading and particularly phonics. And then as time went on, there was a lot of families that were interested in this method and wanting to know how they could help their kid because they weren't getting help in school, and wanted to know if there was a way that they could get the curriculum at home. So that was how Reading Horizons at Home was created. And we primarily serve homeschooling families across the country and even the world to learn the foundational skills of English and helping kids to know the code so that they can unlock the written word.
Wow. Know the code so they can unlock. Those are very powerful words, because the more kids are able to understand and know how to read and like add more vocabulary, we are helping them unlock a whole world that could potentially be closed off to them without them knowing how to access it. I love that. What inspired this company to get its start?
Just the fact that there was a persistent high level of students across the country, according to data and test scores that are released, especially the NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Traditionally, that has shown that up to 60% of students are considered below proficient in reading skills. And this company has done the research, has known for quite a long time what that research says about how children and even adults learn to read. And that is that they need structured, systematic instruction in that code. They need to know the rules in the code of English. And once they have that, it's kind of a misconception that English is such a strange, I used to think that, even as a classroom teacher, I used to think that, English was so strange that there were really no rules, but really, actually, English is over 90% decodable. And, if you know the rules that work for the majority of words, then you can unlock those words. And then, of course, that's just part of learning to read. The other part is, of course, having strong vocabulary, strong background knowledge, and understanding of the world. And so those two things kind of coexist to help a child become a strong reader.
That is really powerful. I have to admit, like when I was growing up in school, I didn't learn my English. I learned phonics and everything from my mom. Like learning how to read, that came from my mother, actually. Like I did not actually learn well reading in actual school. My mom taught me to read. I was reading at 2 years old. I got into, kindergarten. I was reading. I was way ahead of everyone else. When I got into the public school system, that's where everything actually started going down, believe it or not. And my English skills were so far behind at that point. I remember getting into college. I don't know how I graduated. I'm gonna be really honest. I have zero idea how I graduated high school with my English skills, because when I got to college, I'm in college now and I'm going into grad school. My teachers are telling, I got my grammar graded through all my classes. It was the weirdest thing. I was one of the only kids who every one of my teachers didn't just grade my content, they had to grade my grammar. I always got 2 grades. In my biology class, I got 2 grades. I got A for content and C or a D for grammar. It was the weirdest thing that I had to go through, like remedial. For some reason, I was so behind in English. It wasn't even funny. And it wasn't until I hit my 30s, even with everything 30 in my 30s, when I began to teach, believe it or not, when I began to teach Spanish, that was when I began to learn English. It was
Interesting.
crazy how I learned English through the compare and contrast of Spanish. That's how I learned it, because for some reason, it was something that evaded me for all those years. So I think it's awesome that you guys are, really taking the time and creating software, whatever it is that you guys have, to really help kids get mastery in that. Because truthfully, I wasn't able to have really great conversations. I wasn't really able to get too deep in anything because I didn't have the background and the vocabulary for it. So this to me is very near and dear to my heart because of just the lack thereof in the world for this type of education.
Yeah, and that's interesting because what you're saying really makes me think of another coexisting condition that often occurs with dyslexia, and that is developmental language disorder, which is a difficulty with that side of the equation, which is the language part, the grammar part, the semantic. All of those things are more difficult for a child with developmental language disorder. And so that can occur on its own. It can co-occur with dyslexia, but just like phonics, those foundational skills of grammar and language also have to be taught in a structured way, because the vast majority of kids, even for those who aren't dyslexic, up to 60% of kids still need that structured approach in order to become proficient at it. So, it's critical for kids that have dyslexia, but for those other 60%, they still have to have it to become proficient.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt anybody to teach your children in this way, which is to start with the smallest pieces and to get bigger. So we teach what's called synthetic phonics, which means that you start from the smallest pieces, which is letters and their sounds, and then you work up to phonemes, which are pieces of words, and then to words and to bigger words, and that's how you build that skill.
That is really cool. Yeah, it's so funny because when I was little, before school, I was able to read. It's really interesting how your parents can take the material and teach you so well how to do it. Because I remember my aunt told me that the other day, it was so funny. My mom just recently passed away and we were having like kind of memories with her and everything. And she's like, I remember the first time you said spaghetti and you spelt it out for me, spaghetti. You were like 3 years old and we were like, what? Where'd you learn this word? We didn't even tell it to you. And you took us by the hand. You walked over to the kitchen and you said, open the cabinet. And I opened the cabinet and you said, right there, spaghetti. And, parents really, and I say that because when you can connect and you can link up with a good program and you can teach your child and at the same time have someone else, helping you, partnering with them, your kid has a really great chance of doing so much more. Like they just do. And even if they are in a regular public school, whatever, I really believe don't stop teaching them. Don't stop being that point person to teach them. It's going to change everything. I've been a public school teacher now for 22 years. And I'll tell you that I have found that my geniuses, the ones who are genius in my class, every single one of them, there's not been not one. Parents are involved. One way, shape, or other, parents are there. Like right there. And I've seen it, So yes, you do have some kids who are extremely intelligent, but they don't have the work ethic behind it. They could be extremely intelligent, but there's zero work ethic. And then there are those who do struggle a little bit, but for some reason with the parents, they reach these levels and these heights of learning that just would not happen. So oh my gosh, I love everything you guys are focusing on and everything you're doing in literacy. And yes, it is a component to unlock so many different things. And my next question is like, how do you help gifted children and dyslexic? I mean, your whole entire program. It's like, just come and check us out, So
Yeah. And that's the great thing is that, we do have a combination of software and of actual physical curriculum. So we have manuals that go through the method. And, some people choose to just do the software and, as kind of a supplement to what they're doing with their own curriculum. And then some people choose to do the full thing with the manuals. The nice thing about the manuals is they go through exactly, how to teach the skill, how to give your child the opportunities for practice, and then to give them independent opportunities to show what they know. So it's that whole, I do, we do, you do, which is the hallmark of effective teaching.
totally.
Yeah. And so that's one of the great things is that you can customize it. We also have two different curriculums. One is called Discovery, which is for younger grades. It's for kindergartner through third grade generally. And then we have an older grade curriculum, which is called Elevate, which is fourth grade and up. And they teach the same method, just in a different way. So the one
Sure.
for little children is, more kid friendly, more cartoon characters. And the other one is just straightforward. Here's the method, here's the information. So, parents can decide what best would work for their child. And then they can use the resources that we provide to give their child really a customized education. Because that's like you say, you could have a child on one end of the spectrum that's dyslexic, that struggles to even access the written word. And then you can have children on the other end of the spectrum who are gifted and intelligent. And there's actually children that are gifted and dyslexic at the same time. And they need special ways of being taught that can unlock their genius, their understanding. So there's
Yeah.
lots of ways to use it.
Twice exceptional, I've heard of thrice exceptional, quad exceptional. There's so many different things going on now when it comes down to education and the understanding that is now available to so many people. I think it's awesome. And I think it's awesome that you really help parents be able to be the teacher and you train them so that they can support their children in any which way. And the I do, we do, you do. That's what life is, right? We do it first. We show you how to do it. And now we're going to watch you do it. And we're here if you need us,
Right.
but the goal is you don't need us. So
Right.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So where can they connect with you? Where can they find your resources and all of your website?
Yeah, so our website for our products is athome.readinghorizons.com. And like I said, we have not only our products, the software, but we also have the manuals both for younger and older kids. And then we do have a variety of great articles and blog posts that talk about a lot of things about teaching your child to read. So it's a site with a lot of information. We also have a partner nonprofit organization called Rise Institute for Literacy, and I manage the nonprofit as well that actually tutors children here in our center and uses the program to teach kids and also to educate families and the community about dyslexia and about literacy.
Wow.
So our nonprofit website is riseliteracy.org. That has a lot of great resources as well. And then our product website is at home.readinghorizons.com.
Yeah, I will definitely have all of your links in your show notes so everyone can just click and go and not have to get to looking for whatever. We'll make it super easy so they'll be able to just click and get right into your websites. Thank you so much for coming on today. What is one big takeaway you would want families to take away from our conversation today, Michelle?
I would just hope that they would know how critical they are to the success of their children. I mean, as you said, I've been on all sides of the education world, from a homeschool mom myself to a public school classroom teacher and administrator. And when parents are deeply invested in their children and they are wanting to do whatever they can to help their education, they are an unstoppable force. And so I just want to validate parents that choose to homeschool, that choose to do anything that they can to advance their child's education, because it makes a huge difference.
I love it. I agree with you 100%. Thank you for coming on today and just sharing all of your expertise and your understanding and just this whole entire thing, because I learned something today myself. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
If you love the conversations we're having here on the Homeschool Advantage podcast, follow or subscribe our podcast to stay in the loop and never miss this amazing content. And please highly consider taking a minute to leave a positive rating and review to help others like you discover this show. See you next time.